Hi, this is Mark Arnold with yet another episode of Fun Ideas Podcasts. Today we have a special guest who is running a current Kickstarter that's advertised behind me, The Return of Cyrus Perkins, and his name is Dave Dwonch. How are you today, sir?
Good. A little tired. My wife's a jock and she's from Pennsylvania, so we were up late watching the Steelers in a really boring game last night. So I'm reeling from that. But other than that, good.
All right. I know you've done various projects over the years. I guess before we go into this project, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the comic book industry, and then how you got into doing this particular Kickstarter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in comics for a long time. It was like one of the things that was near and dear to my dad, my brother, and myself. We lived in the Bay Area in California, and we huge con scene out there, huge comic shop scene. I mean, like it was the being a kid in the 80s was so cool, like you could get crazy comics for like nothing. And so like you'll see behind me just tons of books that I have from my childhood. But my dad was a huge jock and I was a comic nerd, and it was the one thing that we really um kind of met in the middle on. And then my dad got shipped out to the East Coast for his job. So I'd see him like once a month and he would come back with a stack of comics. Even then he didn't really know that much about comics, but he would go in and be like, just tell me what the cool stuff is. So, cool stuff back then, it's like the Wolverine #1 that's behind me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. Just like 83 was 83 to 85, man, really great books.
Hmm.
And that sort of cemented my love of comics. And then in '89, I met Mark Grunwald, who at the time I didn't realize he was the editor in chief at Marvel, but he was Squadron Supreme. He was writing Captain America at the time. All those awesome Zet covers, it just such cool stuff. And I wound up like a shy like 12-year-old kid going up to my favorite writer and Mark and asking him to sign the Cap No More, the bleeding Stars and Stripes cover where Cap's just
Right.
kind of defeated. You remember that? It's
Yes.
classic, right?
Yes. Yes.
And he opened it up and he looked at it and there was a smudge on the inside on the first page, and he turned to his assistant and he was like, at Marvel, we don't do it this way. This is an imperfect book. And he turns to the kid and he's like, go get this kid a replacement book.
Oh.
And so the kid who's his assistant's like, what? Like, what do you mean? We don't, and he's like, you heard what I said. Find this kid a replacement. So I'm standing there awkwardly, like, what do I do now? Like Mark has my tarnished book while this other kid's looking for this other replacement book. And Mark just kind of looks at me and he says, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, I think I want to work in comic books. I'm not really sure. At the time I was drawing, I was just starting to draw. And he was like, well, while we're waiting for your replacement book, why don't you come behind the table and I'll tell you everything I know about making comics.
Hmm.
And this is me at
Cool.
12 years old. And I'm like,
Cool.
like it's me, the expression or the facial expression of Tom Hanks when he goes into the bachelor party at the bachelor party, where he's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's led, like his heart leads him towards the bachelor party. That's sort of like what happened with me and Mark. And so I sat there for like an hour and a half talking to Mark about panel structure, the placement of word balloons, the overall story flow, not putting too many actions in one panel, yada yada.
Hmm.
What seems like basic stuff, but like was super transformative as a kid.
Hmm.
And that just sort of really like solidified my love of making comics. And like years later, maybe like 2 years ago, I was on a panel with Howard Mackey and I told that story, and Howard was like, what year was that? I was like, I don't know, 88 or 89. And he's like, oh, that's funny. It must have been 88 because in 89, I was his assistant. And it was before he wrote the Danny Ketch Ghostwriter, Howard, right? So then we start talking about Grunwald and how his kids he used to come over every Thanksgiving, and his kids called him Uncle Mark, and and we start crying on this panel about the memories of this one guy and how influential he was in our lives. And I go back to my table and I look over and I didn't realize that Howard was like pretty much like right next to me. There was a gap between our tables. So we just had like after that we were like bros, right?
Mm,
At this show, his family comes to visit and they start talking to me about how what Uncle Mark meant to them. And we start crying at the table. And I'm like, man, this is what comics are supposed to be about, like we I don't know. Like, I can't imagine anyone being able to tell that story as a 12-year-old boy, recalling being 12 years old and then going up to who you don't know is the editor-in-chief of Marvel and them telling you everything that you need to know about being a comic book creator, right? It's just wild. I've had a couple of um, things like that happen to me. Mark Nelson, the guy who drew the Alien series, that original Dark Horse black and white with all those
yeah.
lovely
Oh yeah.
ink strokes. You remember that? Yeah, all
Mm,
the zip tone that he put on
hmm
those pages. And same thing happened with him. I'm like, man, I found like it was a small panel from the Alien miniseries, but someone had blown it up and made a poster that they were selling at like Hot Topic, and I
mm.
saw that and I was like, "Whoa, that's dope! I need that." So I bought it, knowing that eventually, because Mark was a Bay Area guy, I knew I was going to run into him eventually. So this is like when I was 16 or 17. I think I was probably 16 or even 15, but me and my friends used to go get tables at conventions. Like, we'd split a table that cost $75 at a local San Jose show, and we
Right.
would just get berated by everyone that was, uh, coming by. Why are you here? Who are you to
Yeah.
have a table? And I'm like, well, I'm the guy that paid $75 for this table, so I can do whatever I want,
Yeah.
right?
Basically, yeah.
And yeah, and so like Mark was at that convention, that first San Jose convention I went to, and he had never seen that poster. So he signed it and sketched it in gold. I brought a gold pen. I said, sign this for me. And he drew an alien head on it. And then he was like, "What do you want to do with your life?" I was like, "I don't know. I want to work in comics. I have a table over there." And he was like, "Well, why don't you sit with me for a little bit and I'll teach you everything I know about inking comics?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"Well, I love your inking. So, like, yes, please, right?" So, like to this day, if I see a kid with a sketchbook at a convention, I'm like, "Why don't you come back around my on my side of the table, sit with me like you're a peer, and let me tell you everything I know about comics." So, like,
That's cool.
I've just been trying to push it forward. I started a company, um, a long time. Oh gosh, now it's been 15 years, but started a company. Basically, all of our share got eroded, and then the money person took over and really like ran that company to the ground. It's the
Hmm
tale of all tales with indie
Right.
comics. It just happens.
Right.
Uh, and so I struck out on my own after like banging my head against the wall for 10 years at this company. And then that's when things really started to happen for me. That's when the Dark Horse book happened with Jenny Zero.
mm
I still self-publish. If I don't like a contract, I still self-publish.
mm
But my latest book is at Titan called The Loose End, and it's a crime noir buddy survival thing. And then basically every year I'll do like one for me and one for them, depending on what I like or don't like about a contract. So I have a book at Scout called Banshees that I did with Jessica Balboni, who ran The Escapist in Oakland, I think Oakland, Berkeley, that area.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, really honestly, nowadays I'm getting old. I turned 52 this week, so thanks for celebrating my birthday with me, Mark.
Yeah.
Um,
Happy
but
birthday.
yeah. Just it really like at this point, you get into comics with the goal of like, oh, I really want to write Daredevil or I really want to draw Wolverine or really, now it's like I just want to write something that's super heartfelt and personal to me, and that's what Cyrus Perkins is, and you know, I've had the publishers ask about it. If I don't like a contract these days, I don't like a contract. I just won't sign it, and I'll
Yeah.
just do it myself because that's what Kickstarter allows you to do, right? Like play on your own terms and not worry so much about the end game.
Right.
Like fortune and fame. When you're young, that's all you really care about. Now it's just like, man, I really like making grown men cry when they read my comics. That's the goal now.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's true. You want a more personal experience instead of just doing something just totally, that you're not passionate about.
Well, and
Just
it's like you always think, oh, I gotta keep up with the Joneses, man. I gotta put like 3 books out a year. I gotta do San Diego Comic-Con. I definitely gotta go to New York. If I'm not at New York, I'm not relevant. Like weird things get in people's heads these days
yeah,
about
yeah,
like why do you keep going? It's not to be seen, it's to be remembered, you
yeah,
know? And
yeah.
like to one person or 1,000 people or 100,000 people, it doesn't really matter. Like like the person that comes up to you at a convention and brings a book from their personal collection and wants you to sign it. Wow,
Mm,
that's awesome, right?
yep.
Someone cosplays as one of your characters, mind blowing, right? Like what are you talking
Mhm.
about? You went through the effort of that. Like you really love that book more than I love that book. Holy
Yeah.
crap, you know?
Excuse me.
So yeah, it's now it's like with Cyrus Perkins, it's just one of those things where um I want to do the ultimate version of that book because that book is now 10 years old and the publisher that I founded held my rights in perpetuity after I sold my shares. It's just a
Mm,
whole nightmare of a
mm,
thing. And
yeah.
it's really easy to villainize people, but I think that like at the end of the day, I signed a contract that I probably shouldn't have signed, and that's on me,
Hmm.
Like it's the buyer beware situation,
Right.
and unfortunately, I was a creative director of that company for years, and we got a lot of great books. Princeless was one of them, Eisner nominated books, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of that was me just finding the diamonds in the rough and being able to polish them and get them to a point where, like, when we got Princeless at that, I met Jeremy at a convention. I think it was Heroes Con. I always joke that like when you start out, they don't put you in Artist Alley, they put you in Sex Offender Alley, all the way in the back of the convention,
Right.
facing the women's bathroom, and you're
Right.
like, wow, this is just terrible. So Jeremy and I were in Sex Offender Alley, and I we did that eventual like book swap that creators do at the end of the convention. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll read your book, you read mine, and have a good day. Lighten the load, and I got to
Hmm.
get rid of these books anyway. Just take one.
Right. Right.
And I got his book, and I got home and I read it, and the art was very raw, and the script was phenomenal. And I was like, man, if you got a new artist on this book, this is an Eisner nominated book. And so I went. Me and Sean Gabarine, who was the editor in chief at Action Lab at the time, we went and found an artist who we'd known from, Sean's a genius. Like he's the king of short form, and he was doing these 2-page gory stories, and it was just literally like 2 pages of horror, little like niblets, and he got to work with like dozens and dozens of creators because he's like, hey, do you want to do a 2-page story? I'll pay you for so he doesn't have to break his bank. He gets to work with all these. Daniel Warren Johnson worked with him on a 2-pager. I mean, that's how crazy like long we've been in the industry and how Sean had an eye for it even then, right? So we found
Hmm.
Mia, and she worked on Princeless, and then it got Eisner nominated, and that's what really put that company on the map. But I was always like, the uh, contracts are just terrible. I like when they make me president, I'm gonna change these contracts. So they made me president. I'm like, I'm gonna change these contracts, and they were like, no, no, you're not. You're basically just a figurehead. And so at
Oh.
that point, I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I said, well, if I can't make change from within, I have to make change outside of it.
Hmm.
And then started self-publishing, and everyone always asks when I'm going to get back into publishing, and I'm like, man, I don't think so. I'm getting 52 this week.
Yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
do for me, and that doesn't mean I don't get to like network and help people put teams together, and that's always like a fun thing to help people with. But
Hmm.
like, yeah, at this point, I just feel like I need to, I've got too many ideas in this brain, man. Like I got to get them out before I pass.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
I understand
yeah.
how that is. I mean, I write uh nonfiction histories and things like that, but still, there's like ideas for books that I want to do. So, it's like there's no time anymore.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
between the day job, between
Yeah.
the wife, you're getting married too, right? Like,
I'm married, but yeah, yeah.
oh, you are. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you answer to a higher calling now. Like there
Yes.
is no like work until 1 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
I
Well, it was strangely enough, she's a first responder, so she's the one working late. I'm going to
okay.
sleep because I have the 9 to 5 type job. But anyway,
Okay. Okay.
but yeah, I still work on things during the day. If I really have a deadline pressing, yeah, I'll work late. But usually the latest I work is like these podcasts, so that's why I do them after work. Work.
Yep.
I come home and do this, so it's like, okay. So I
Well,
try to be enthusiastic after a whole day of work. I'm like, oh.
I podcasted for like 10 years with my best friends, and
hmm
I don't have kids, and they all started having kids, so they started slowing down. We would get together
Yeah,
once or twice a week and we would record 3 episodes at a
yeah,
time and we just hang out, and it was
yeah,
so much fun.
yeah,
As soon as again that higher calling spoke to them, it became fewer and fewer, lesser and lesser,
yeah,
and then you get old and you're like you don't have that drunk boy energy anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And our podcast was so off the cuff that I was like, I'm transitioning into this more professional role in comic books. And some of the crap that we said on this podcast, it's going to bite me on the butt. It's just, it
yeah,
is. And it's not
yeah,
even me saying it. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
you get associated with someone saying something out of whack, and
Right.
that's it. So we burn the negatives, and we kept them on a disc for ourselves, and that was it.
Yeah. I've had a
So
few episodes like that. If somebody wants to dig deep enough in the archives, there's few off the wall episodes. I'll just roll my eyes and move on.
yeah,
But, they're there for anybody who really wants to look at things. But for the most part, I've tried to keep it really professional and, stick with, the topics that we
yeah,
tend to cover, which is, comic books and music and TV and movies and, animation, things like that. So,
right on.
um, as far as, frequency, yeah, it's like when I started doing this, it was during the pandemic, and it's like, we're churning them out once a week here, but everyone. And then it was like at the end of last year, I just said, I'm tired.
Yeah,
It's like it's hard to do 52 new episodes. And I said, all right, for 2025, I'm doing one a month.
yeah.
And you're number 12 or 13 for this year. So
Well,
it's like I
I
pretty much kept
feel
it to that. And it's a lot better. It's like I can
yeah.
pick and choose. I don't have to be disappointed if somebody says no, because I have another 3 weeks I can come up with somebody,
Sure, sure.
or reschedule
Well,
or whatever. But yeah,
I
so
mean, that's the thing, right? Like
yeah,
it's like I said about comics, man. I used to have to do 3 series a year, and and
yeah.
and it was um I I would rather do one that really moves people than to do four and feel relevant. The level of accomplishment's almost the same, you
Yeah.
know. But people always ask like how I'm able to do as many books, and it's not that I'm doing a lot of books. I barely write anymore. I just have books in the hopper at all
hmm
times.
Yeah.
At least two
Same
books
with
in the
me. Yeah.
works, right? But
Yeah.
like they're gonna come out either the beginning, the middle, or the end of the year, right? Like
Right.
so now I'm just kind of like I said, one for them and one for me if
Yeah.
if I'm lucky at this
Yeah.
point. Because you
hmm
never know what publishers are going to be into either. You just have to make and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Or everyone's going to love it, but you're going to hate the contract. So like then you're like, well, then I might as well just do it myself
Yeah.
on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what Cyrus is like.
Yeah. hmm
Um, but like 15 years ago, no, 12 years ago, I was dying and I got in the back of a taxi cab. And I told the driver, if I die in this cab, I'm going to haunt it. And then I woke up out of surgery and went, wait a second, that's a pretty cool idea. Like
Uh,
no one's done a haunted house in a taxi cab and
hmm
people die everywhere. So why don't we tell that story?
hmm Now,
So
how did I mean, obviously that's how it came about, but I mean, was the reason you got in the taxi in the first place, was it because of this medical condition or something that just happened upon you? You know?
no, no. So I was at work and it's fun. I've had the same job for, I mean, 25 plus years. Like I got like an award for 25 years,
Eh,
been it's been a long time and
half your life.
if anything, I'm the most loyal and stable person, and obviously repetition. You look at all
Yeah.
of this stuff, like there's a
Yeah.
compulsion
Yeah.
that I have to stick around and get things done.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I think I got food poisoning. I'm gonna go home early, and they're like,
hmm
cool. And so I went home, and then like it was on a Friday.
Hmm.
And then I just got progressively worse. And then by like Tuesday, called in sick again. By Tuesday, I can't get up. I can't move. I can't eat. I can't drink anything. I'm so dehydrated and exhausted that like my body's atrophying and I'm like
Hmm.
freaking mummifying and screaming in pain from
Hmm.
it. And it turned out that it was just my gallbladder.
Mm.
But like you sit on that for long enough and it's going to distend and it had it ruptured and it was very close to
Yeah.
being able to rupture at that point.
Okay.
But I called the hospital and they're like, yeah, dude, that's not food poisoning.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're gonna get an ambulance over there. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want to get stuck with a $10,000 bill. I'll drive myself to the hospital.
Yeah.
And they were like, you're not in any condition to do that. And after like a few minutes of arguing, they were like, then just call a cab. So I
Yeah.
called the cab and I got into it. And then I said the hospital and I passed out. And I wake up to him screaming, what hospital? Where are we going?
Wow.
And I barely give him directions. I'm like at the end of and luckily the hospital that I am a member of, it's right. It was like 3 miles down the street and you make a right and it's right there. So it was really easy to get
Yeah.
to. If I
Under
had to get in
normal
real directions, I would
circumstances,
have
you
been
could have driven
screwed.
yourself. Yeah.
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 But I was like straight down this road. When it ends, go right. It's right there. And so
Yeah.
I get out and I had like when I turned 40, and this is, like I said, I'm 52 this week. So yeah, 12 years ago. When I turned 40, man, like every warranty I had expired. I was like a Hyundai, I was
Yeah.
like, it's gonna run great until that warranty's
Yeah.
expired. And I had 3 stents put in because I was at work and I got lightheaded and I checked myself in and
Hmm.
this was like maybe a month or two before the taxi cab incident. And like they couldn't operate. So they stuck a tube in and they basically said it's going to drain into this bag, drain the bag, don't fly, don't drink, don't exert yourself. But I had a book called Pamphlets coming out
Mm.
and it was going to debut at San Diego that month. So I
Oh.
I flew. I,
Oh.
I I went to the convention. I was signing books. Jamal, uh, he was next to me, and I pass out, and
Wow.
it was. I'd wake up and be like, oh, and I'm sweating and dying, and then like I have this weird work ethic where I was like, guys, I feel really really badly, but I got to go and take a nap now. So I'd go and take a nap for 2 hours, come back and sign, and then the gallbladder thing happened. Well, and then the gallbladder thing happened, and um like basically they couldn't operate so the bag happened and then it got clogged and then a month later I'm getting so they needed basically for the blood thinners to like run through my system so they could operate. Luckily they read my chart
Wow.
because had they just operated I would have bled out right there, right?
Oh, wow.
So like I got really lucky.
Hmm.
And so anyway, like long story short, it gets clogged. I know what it is. I'm relapsing, and I had a friend drop me off at the hospital a month later after I got back from San Diego Comic Con, all that good stuff.
Mm.
And I knew what it was, and it wasn't like critical. So I called a cab home. My friend had to go back to work. He dropped me off. He's like, I got to go back to work. I can't pick you up. I was like, that's fine. I'll call a cab. I call a cab. It's the same taxi cab driver because I live in a small town. And like the first words out of his mouth are "Have you been here the whole time?" And I'm like, "No, man, no, I no, I'm fine,
Yeah.
But I got to thank the guy that saved my life. And
Yeah.
unless you're gonna like go stalk your first responders, like that doesn't happen where you get to thank the people that saved your life. So I like even in like pain and trauma, just I feel like somewhat blessed that I was able to thank that person.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, Cyrus Perkins is based on that event and that joke I made, if I die in this cabin, I'm gonna haunt it. But then I was like, well, it's about a little boy, and now this driver is thrown into this role of like a supernatural gumshoe detective where like this kid's soul is trapped in the taxi cab.
Hmm.
So he has to solve his murder so the kid can leave, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's that like um it's an unexpected hero's journey, and I'm a really big fan of that sort of stuff. I'm a big
Right.
fan of Legacy, which is why I love DC stuff.
Hmm.
But I'm like a second generation DC guy. I'm a Crisis on Infinite Earths guy. So
Yeah.
Wally West is my Flash. Like there
Mm.
is no like he is so much more layered than Barry was in my mind. Like old
Hmm.
Barry, that Carmine Infantino stuff. Like
Hmm.
Barry's just a really good guy. you know? And yeah,
Oh,
the twist is he gets to kill Zoom. Spoilers, sorry guys, but like it's even that turn wasn't enough. Like for me, Wally is the natural progression. For me,
yeah.
like Dick Grayson's the natural progression. And that second generation hero is like what I'm all about. And that's sort of what Jenny Zero is about with Dark Horse, right? It's like second
Hmm.
generation kaiju fighter.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I mean I like to revisit those tropes. I've always said I was gonna write for Marvel, but I'm looking more at like DC and thinking, man, I like that is really the stuff that when I grew up, like when I was a kid, I was into Marvel stuff. When I was
Hmm.
growing out of comics, it was like DC stuff. And then I
Yeah.
came back into it and I'm like, man, now I really do want to write some Marvel stuff because I think that there's a lot of fun characters there. But
Hmm.
DC still like really just like hits the heart a little differently.
Yeah. It is interesting how it is kind of different in different ways. Sometimes they try to be very, very similar, but it's still, there is a difference. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I
So,
I just
mm,
wish that like at least like from as far as like my comic reading goes, the one thing I appreciate about Marvel is it doesn't feel like they have to reboot every 5 to 10 years,
right, right.
whereas DC does do that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a bummer because then, as a second generation DC person, to have those characters go away so that they can return to status quo, that prior status quo. Like when Barry came
Yeah.
back, I was like, man, that that didn't for me it didn't need to happen because I had Mark Waid and Brian Augustine's return of Barry Allen's story where it was Zoom spoilers. That
Mm,
story is so well done
hmm.
that I didn't need Barry to come back after reading that. I was like,
Right.
we now have Wally as the Flash, and this is my Flash. Um, but yeah, that sort of like they lost me after like New 52,
Yeah.
because I was like, wow, they're just
Seems
gonna do this every 10
seems
years.
to have lost a lot of people at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I even really read anything current at all, at this point, it's just, I tend to collect more of the facsimile editions of older stuff now. So,
I do like the artist editions where they're
yeah,
the 11 by 17 pages, and then I
yeah,
buy I buy indie
yeah,
stuff. And when I go into
yeah,
comic shops as an indie creator, I go in to support like that indie community that I've learned to call family. Like a
yeah.
lot of my friends because of that whole Action Lab thing, I made a lot of great friends and connections along the way. And
Mm,
I'll buy everything David Pepos all day.
mm,
I'll
mm,
read Dennis Culver. He dips into indies, but he's also writing DC stuff. Met him along the way. Justin
hmm.
Greenwood. We're born on the same day. I gotta wish him happy birthday on Friday. Same day. You
Yep.
know, and he's very, very prolific. He's a working man's kind of artist, but man, he's got style and panache, and he's just like my second brother.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, when I go to comic shops, I support shops by buying indie stuff.
Yeah,
And I think that like that's what's good about Kickstarter too,
yeah.
is like you're
I
gonna
try to do
find
that too. Yeah.
a
Hmm.
ton of great stuff there. Yeah.
Okay. I have a few more questions about the Cyrus Perkins thing.
Yeah.
So, that's obviously how the character was created. So how many is this the second or the third book that you're working on?
So the Return of Cyrus Perkins is so because my rights were held up in
Uh-huh.
perpetuity at Action Lab, I did eventually buy them back with an undisclosed amount that I can't really talk about, but
That's okay.
it was shelved. Like I had the volume two issue one written for 10 years,
Hmm.
and it was just on a shelf, like waiting for me to get back to it. So the intent of the Kickstarter is to get the hardcover done of the first volume, which is 4 issues.
Okay.
The second volume is 5 issues, which is actually done as of this week. I've got a letter and color the last issue, issue five.
Okay.
And then what I did with this Kickstarter is I put the hardcover in there, and then I did the first issue of the next volume
Okay.
as a premium. There's only 100 issues, 100 copies made of that. I'm going to do another 100 copies as a convention exclusive, and then go straight to hardcover. So if anyone goes to the Kickstarter and they want to get the hardcover, and they're like, "Well, I want to wait for the next hardcover," you totally can. But anyone that knows my design work and everything, I did the automaton last year. They're going to be fantastic looking books.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you what, Mark, it's really tough to go back to something that's been shelved for 10 years and be like, all right, I got to write the next four. Like, you
Yeah.
know what you want to do, but as a writer that now has 10 more years of experience,
Yeah.
you're like sort of trained in what to do and what not to do. You don't have that devil may care, like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go and do it and do this punk rock thing. Like now I'm refined. And so it was a real challenge to get back to that raw state and
Right.
to push envelopes in a way that was daring, you know?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so um that like I said nothing really changed from the first issue that is available on Kickstarter now. Like I went through and I just made sure that the dialogue made sense with what we had going in the first volume and where I was going with the next one. But yeah, I had to add a fifth issue because the story got too big in my mind. I always write in 4 issue increments in 24 pages. Like if I'm telling a story, that's usually how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But with this one I added an issue because there's a swerve that happens in volume two that is, I think, going to be very unexpected for readers,
Mm-hmm.
especially readers who have read that book 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hardcover needs to refresh their memory. But yeah, I want someone to challenge me and be like, this, you swerved me. This isn't the story I intended. And I'm like, well, it was always the story I intended. So go
Mm-hmm.
back and read the first volume because there's so many little, I don't want to call them Easter eggs, but like narratives that lead exactly to where I'm going in volume two with the Death
Mm-hmm.
Brigade
Mm-hmm.
that I'm so proud that I was able to accomplish it. Like I challenged myself in a way that I normally wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when something's fresh off the press, I'm already writing the next volume. Like Jenny Zero, we knew that we were going to do volume two. So we were working on that like as volume one was happening.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing volume three, and it's been a couple years. Magenta King was the artist of that, and he took off like a rocket. So he worked on Future Detective over at Titan, and now his schedule's cleared up, and we're working on it now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another situation where we know where we want to go, but it's all the things in the middle, the sweet little things that happen in the middle that really make the book, and we just want to make sure that we get that. And I think I did it with Cyrus Perkins. So
Very cool.
yeah.
So if somebody pledges to your Kickstarter, what type of different premiums or items do you get? What are the different levels and things like that? So
So we did it. I like to keep it simple, man. I'm not one to
yeah.
try
Well,
to like, hey, here's 8 covers and here's the booby cover or any of that. My stuff doesn't really lend itself to a lot of the things that happen on Kickstarter, you
mm-hmm.
know? So it's really truly about getting people to read the book. It's a
Mm-hmm.
$25 hardcover, which is an absurdly cheap
Mm-hmm.
premium for such a beautiful looking book. So it's there's the regular version for 25. There's a limited to 200 version that is drawn by the new artist of Cyrus Perkins and the Death Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that book is going to lead right, like I wanted her to have ties to the first volume too.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got that. And then we literally just have the new number one with 100 copies. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's all the add-ons. So like basically my entire library of work that I own is on that Kickstarter. So if you're unfamiliar with my work, I would recommend trying out the Automaton, which is another book that was like slightly lightly based on my life growing
Mm-hmm.
up as an artist and bucking the tradition of my family of
Mm-hmm.
they wanted me to be an engineer or an analyst, and that's what I do in my day job.
Yeah.
But when I said I wanted to go to art school, they were like they begrudgingly let me do it. But then when I dropped out, they disowned me because they were like,
Oh,
you're a failure and you
yeah.
didn't listen to us and you didn't stick to your guns." But I just realized that like I learned from the School of Hard Knocks
Yeah.
uh, a lot more than I do in art school, or I
Yeah.
did in art school. So that sort of is the origin story of the main character of that book. I would say check out Mind Palace, which is a love letter to Brian Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Fuller is the guy who created Hannibal. All of his shows get canceled after 2 or 3 seasons, and coming from a world where my work was shelved for 10 years. I knew exactly how it felt to be Brian Fuller, right?
Mm.
People love the work and they're like, when's the next one coming out? And you have to say, I don't own that. Someone
Yeah.
else owns that. Luckily, I got to get my rights back, but every time Brian Fuller posts about something, anything,
Hmm.
you go into the comment section, everyone's like, when is Hannibal coming back?
Yeah.
And he's like, NBC owns that. He does not own that,
Yeah.
you know? So I wrote a book about what it must be like to be Brian Fuller and to feel that frustration because I felt that frustration. So again, like every book that I have is like something to do with my life.
Right.
And Brian found me online. People were talking about the book, and he
Hmm.
reached out and did the introduction for me. And we went back and forth for a little bit on it. And great guy, really, really like a grateful, gracious human being. He understands his fans make him, and
Hmm.
that's sort of how I feel too. And so yeah, you could pick up pretty much all of my books except for the things that are still being held by that company. I
Hmm.
did like six other books there,
Hmm.
and I knew that Cyrus Perkins was the one I needed back, you know. So I put all of my apples in that basket, and that's why the Kickstarter exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you reveal a little bit about what happens next as far as so you started off in the taxi with a near-death experience, but I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
obviously the story has to go somewhere. So where does it lead after that?
So in the first volume, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that has it, but it is literally a mystery about a little boy who he's dead. His soul is trapped in the car, but he doesn't remember how he got there or how he died. So Cyrus has to unfurl that mystery. And within that mystery, without revealing too much, it has a very supernatural bent, even past the ghost boy, right?
Okay.
So these kids are fiddling with things with powers they don't understand, and that's sort of how Michael gets how he dies. But the power that they're fiddling with is now let loose upon the earth,
Mm,
and so it's up to Cyrus and another group called the Death Brigade to track this monster down and
mm,
send it back to from whence it came.
mm,
So again, it's another it ties directly into this first volume, but it's almost more of a supernatural crime noir revenge story.
mhm,
The first one's it's a crime noir supernatural mystery. This next one is going to have a little bit more teeth. It's going to be more of a revenge story. And then, with volume three, which is going to come out probably not next year. It'll probably be the year after.
mhm.
It's going to go back to basics, and it's going to be almost like a Incredible Hulk road trip story. Where Cyrus gets to go and solve mysteries and solve crimes as he's finding himself through the journey of it all, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, and it really it is planned as three volumes, and I know where I'm going to begin it. I know where I'm going to end it. It's that middle part that I'm kind of like,
Right.
well, I can do anything I want. Oh man, don't give me that option because I'm going to do everything I want. So yeah, yeah, it really, I think it really does tie together. If you read the first volume, um, you're going to take it at surface level as a mystery that gets solved. But when you get into volume two, I would recommend rereading volume one
Mm,
and
okay.
understanding the subtext of what's happening within that.
Mm, okay.
Yeah,
Now, you obviously have the whole concept in your mind or whatever.
yeah.
Once you commit it to paper, or however you, proverbial put it to paper, how long does it take you to take your basic overall idea and then hone it down into the four issue arc or whatever? Or,
Yeah, it depends on the story. Like with Cyrus, it was I had the beats in a pitch. Like when I get done with the first volume and I intend to do more, I usually write a pitch Bible.
Mhm.
And then within that pitch Bible, it's almost like that's your outline. And then you flesh it out from there. And then you're
Right.
breaking up whole paragraphs from your outline into issues, right? And like breaking
Mhm.
like so what I'll do is I'll go into a multi-paragraph pitch, figure out and isolate which issues are in there, and then I'll literally like take each sentence within that and say, this is 5 pages, this is
Mm,
one page, this is 3 pages, this is
cool.
so it then becomes like balancing that story and the story beats within my own mind and making sure I end it within 20 to 28 pages.
Right.
And then from there, hopefully I know the characters well enough that it writes itself.
Hmm.
I'll just take those. Okay, I got 4 pages to get this idea out or this story beat out, and I'll just write dialogue. And then within that dialogue, I chop it up. So everything becomes an outline of an outline of an outline of an outline. And so writing an issue isn't the hard part for me. It's the it's working with the artist and making sure that they
Mm,
understand where I'm going. And I like to try to have as much written as possible so that they can read it and understand where I'm going so that there aren't those um, issues where you go back to issue one and it's not consistent with issue three
right.
and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. So writing a book could take me anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, but getting an issue drawn is another 4 months, probably three,
Mm,
4 months, because usually the artists I'm working on have day jobs just like me, like
right.
they're working on it
Yeah.
on their off time. And, and then budgetarily, like the Kickstarter, it's covering for the print cost. All I'm asking for is a print cost. I cover all of the production cost on my own,
Mm,
right? So that helps me keep the cover price down. I think if I had to cover production cost, like that hardcover would be like $30 to $40, right? And
mm,
I don't
mm,
I want the entry point into my work to be as low as possible, so
mm,
I get as many people into it as possible. Because really, it's a reader's book. It's
mm.
not a look at the pretty pictures book. It's not a hey, look at this
Right.
engaging booby cover. That's not what I do. Like
Yeah.
I'm here to provide entertainment and content,
Hmm.
you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, most books that I work on, it takes at least a year to get 4 issues done.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll tell every artist that I work with, yeah, I'll pay you the premium, but don't do more than 3 or 4 pages a week because I can't afford you if you do. So like we're on my budgetary
Right.
schedule,
Yeah.
you know.
I know other people that work that way. Yes.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's a
yeah.
pain, but it's also kind of awesome that every Friday you get 3 pages, and
Right.
you're like, "Ooh, these 3 pages are tight."
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Now, I assume you work with artists that are easy to work with that know how to express your ideas. Do you ever have any friction or anything like that? Or, uh,
I've had everyone's different,
mhm,
like because I started out as an artist, I feel like my scripts are very artist favorable.
mhm,
I feel like when I write in a cinematic way,
mhm,
and I feel like that's part of the specificity of comics. As a writer, you can write really great dialogue. Like
right.
Bendis is a great dialogue guy, like
Hmm.
really awesome. But I haven't read his scripts. I don't know how descriptive he gets.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, do you
uh,
actually go and storyboard it out too, or and draw it
no,
yourself, or
no.
just do it as actual script? Yeah.
I just, the Mark Grunwald school of me being a 12-year-old is, like no more than 6 panels unless it's um, nearly a silent page or a mood page or those
Hmm.
12 panels need to convey the passage of time, like Watchmen, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like, um, but I won't ever do less than 3 panels a page because I think that's silly. That's crazy. Unless it's a splash where it's just like the biggest moment in the book, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, I don't even remember where I was going with this, other than to say like I like to leave the artist with as much um of their own input as possible.
Okay.
Like a lot of times it's I need this to be a mid shot. I need this character on the left and this character on the right because the guy or gal on the left is talking first.
Yeah.
It's just simple
Yeah.
as that, right? But like when I'm building moods, it's I try to vary my panels as much as possible
Hmm.
and not do the talking head panel thing. But
Right.
some uh pages call for that. If it's two people having a heated discussion,
Yeah.
you know, that's what talking head panels are,
Yeah, you don't want to distract away from that if the conversation's the key to the scene.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
yeah, I get that.
And I'll leave notes like, "Hey, sorry I'm so talky here, but
Now,
leave room, blah, blah, blah,
are
blah."
you open to suggestions? The artist says, "Hey, I think it might be good to do this instead." Or are you like, "No, this is my creative work. I want it the way I want it."
I would rather have those conversations than the pages come back and it because I've had that happen, by the
Yeah.
way,
Oh,
where
where
they're
it's
like,
done already
"Oh,
and they didn't ask.
like Saw." Like one time I was writing a book and
Uh,
Saw had just come out, and I was like, "Oh yeah, they're going to be torturing this guy. These vampires are going to be torturing this guy,"
right.
and the artist drew this elaborate torture device And it took me out of the realism of this scene, and I had to be like, look, dude, this is not what I asked for. And I'm really
Yeah.
glad that you were into this much, but like this is still a very realistic street level scene in my mind. Like
Yeah.
there is no ancient vampire contraption here, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um, but that very rarely happens. And I think that it's when I work with artists that I'm not familiar with or that we don't have that bond or trust yet, I write the crap out of that page. I will give you every
Makes
little
sense.
detail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as we get to like know each other, there's that shorthand, that economy of storytelling where, I know they're going to know what I'm trying to get at. But
Hmm.
then there are also times where I'm like, this has got to be a wide shot because in my mind, I'm doing a John Woo thing here. So you got to pull back and I got to see the dove. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. Um, Not that I've ever done that in my comic, but in my mind, there are scenes that need that
Hmm.
space in the
Right.
panel. Two people like that. It's the shootout at the OK Corral. You need that wide shot to establish the intensity that these two people are sharing and the space between them. You
Hmm.
know. So yeah, I don't really see. Um, I mean, honestly, maybe I've just been really, really blessed with some really great artists too.
Yeah.
Like Santiago, the guy that drew the automaton. We've been working together for like now 15 years,
Hmm.
and we just get it. We just know each other so well. But it's really funny because as we got done with the automaton, which is set in a theme park, his brother lives in Florida and he lives in Argentina, and I was like, why don't you come visit your brother? We'll go to Disney World and it'll be like a celebration that we could write off as research. But really, we weren't researching anything. We just want to do it
Yeah.
or Disney World. He gets off the bus day one of this like 3 day convention. And he gets off the bus, and I realized for the first time in 10 years that he doesn't speak English.
Huh.
And he's been using like Google Translate to translate my scripts and then work. And so we spent an entire weekend of like the 90 Day Fiance thing where we're like talking to each other and being like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And we're like passing the
Wow.
phone back and forth. And but by the end of it, like again, we got that shorthand that we just know each other. And
Yeah.
by the end, we're like, yeah, this solidified that we're brothers forever,
That's
like
cool.
yeah, it was cool. But it's so weird to know that like there are people that are translating and nothing got lost in translation. Like
Hmm.
there's been a couple of times like where I said this kid's wearing a Halloween mask and then the page comes back and he's wearing a Michael Myers Halloween mask
Oh, I
and I'm
see. Yeah, the
like,
movie
oh,
Halloween.
that doesn't really work, but it doesn't not work,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, ah, fuck it, just leave it in, like
Yeah.
that's totally fine.
Hmm.
But that's as far as he's deviated from my script because he didn't understand the Halloween mask thing. And I'm
Right.
like, totally fine. Totally
Yeah.
fine. It still made the scene extra creepy to have this little kid wearing a Michael Myers mask carrying a knife. And I was
Right.
like, that wasn't really necessarily what I was going for, but it totally it
Yeah.
sells it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I've written a few stories in the past, and yeah, it's like sometimes the I don't give certain directions because I kind of want to know what the artist will do with it, and sometimes they surprise me. It's like, oh, that
Yeah.
was cool. I didn't think of that. So
Yeah.
it turned out better than what I had anticipated. If it's something I'm really, that it has to be a certain way, yes, I would describe it a lot better than,
Well, like
yeah.
on the loose end, like Travis, so that was another Travis, the artist of the loose end, lives 10 minutes away from me, and I
Mhm.
met him in back in the old days in the Bay Area, and when I moved here, I was like, oh wait, Travis is here. Let's just go get a beer. I pitched him the loose end, and he was like, I love it. Let's go for it. And I had written, I think, 2 issues of that, and then he jumped on board, and I finished it. But I always knew where I was going to go with that story, and the way I wrote the actions, it's very action heavy. I gave him enough liberty to draw it any way he wanted. But what I was very concerned with was the movement of the martial arts, like how someone gets taken down, like how someone dismantles a gun or takes a gun away from someone,
Mhm.
little things like that. So like when it came to that, I was like, yeah, it's wide open here. Do whatever you want. But the action needs to specifically be this. This is the takedown I want,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think that came, I did some work for the UFC. I did like a comic for them, which is really weird. But that was something that they were very specific about. And that's something I picked up from them, right? Like if you're
Mhm.
gonna sell it, sell it. Don't they're like I wrote the book for them, and they were like, that chokehold could kill someone.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, I don't know that. And he's like, yeah, you need your artist to redo that. Because all I was doing was Googling takedowns and I, like, what's that chokehold look like? Or what's it called? And I would write it in. And then the artist would take that, Google it. And then they would be like, no, it's not this. It's this. Because
Mm.
this pushes pressure on their windpipe. This doesn't. Right. So there's just like little things like that where I'm like, okay, I've got to nail the authenticity of that in my own book.
Right. Hmm.
Um, and I think that people really responded to the action in that book, and then Travis will say I underwrote it, and I'll
Hmm.
say I overwrote it, but really it's just both of us trusting each other to do it.
Right.
You know?
That makes sense. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
So after this Kickstarter is over, I'll get you one more chance to plug it and everything like that. But
yeah.
what other projects are you currently working on, or are you planning to work on in the next few months?
Oh man, well, I mean, you can see my office. I Titan is like my favorite company to work with.
Hmm.
And I touched base with them at San Diego Comic Con because I've been angling to write Robotech forever. I want Robotech. It's like the thing that I grew up with. It was my
Hmm.
soap opera, and we got to talking, and they're like, we don't know if we're doing anymore. We may let the license expire. Like it's a real tough book to get new fans of. Right. I
Hmm.
mean, it's steeped in that original cartoon. There's been stuff that came out afterwards that's a lot of it is freaking subpar. And I'm like, as much of a collector as I am, I'm like, I'm just gonna buy all the Robotech comics because it's attainable.
Hmm.
Like I want to buy all the Daredevils, but I'm like, man, I got the number one. After that, I'm like, do I need anything else? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot.
yeah.
Like for me, I do feel like I need to pitch out. So I'm starting to develop a Robotech thing just to see if like whoever takes it over, I'm almost like tempted to see how much that license costs and then just take it and go
Do
and
it
do it
yourself.
somewhere
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Hmm.
maybe. But there's that. I have a couple of other crime books that I'm working on. They're kind of in their infancy. One's um a White Lotusy crime thing, but it's also about a couple that's trying their best to salvage their relationship by going on a honeymoon that the writing's on the wall, it's not gonna happen, and then bad things happen on that. So
Hmm.
very much kind of like the loose end. And then I have another book about two very specific women in a small town, and I want to work on that, but that is in its infancy too.
Hmm.
Really, quite honestly, the thing I'm working on the most is Cyrus Perkins, and then Jenny 03 is coming out. So like staying busy with some old stuff and like tying up some series.
Hmm.
But I feel like now is the time for me to just go and start touching base with some of those other publishers and just see if they'll let me play in their sandbox.
Right.
So that's sort of what this year's about.
Hmm.
We'll see. We'll see. So yeah, JD0, Cyrus 2, which is Cyrus Perkins of the Death Brigade, and
Hmm.
then Cyrus 3, which I don't have the name of just quite yet. I've got a few ideas bandering about.
Hmm.
So Jenny, Cyrus, and then I will most likely work on one of those two other projects.
Hmm.
I can't give you the names of them because the
That's
names are
fine.
so
Yeah,
good.
I always,
Someone's gonna
I
someone's
never
gonna be like, yes, yeah, right
force
there.
anybody to say anything that they're not at liberty to disclose yet. Um, uh, you did mention this, the company that has the rights to some other of the projects. Are there any other projects from that company that you would want to get the rights back to if you could, or is it just like
Yeah.
I got only Cyrus Perkins and that's it?
Well, I did Double Jumpers, and I was able with that book to get it to the finish line. I had two volumes of that plus like a one off
Mhm.
that kind of like fit in between them. But
Yep.
Double Jumpers is a book that I would love to get back just to do a compendium.
Mm.
Just say, hey, look, here's the book. I did another book there called Space Time Condominium that I actually have the rights for. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna do a collected hardcover of that
Okay.
eventually, probably in the next 2 years. I do have another series called The Unbearable Grizzly Boy that's like an all ages superhero book that's complete that'll see the light of day in the next year. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the work doesn't stop. I have this book
Mhm.
called Bobby Brimstone with my friend Brian Hess. He's finishing up a couple of books,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna get into that. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty booked up for the next couple of
Yeah.
years. It's just engaging publishers and making sure that I get the right deals.
Yeah.
and I'm in the right home. You could love a publisher and create a book, and the book just doesn't fit in their library of
No.
books,
Yeah.
So for me, it's finding the right homes for the projects.
Right.
And then if I find the right home and I don't like the contract, I'll
Right,
Kickstarter.
right. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like as you said earlier, so some of these probably would come through a publisher, but they might not because of the deal. So you do another Kickstarter on other projects down the road, basically.
Well, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked and I'm not shocked. I'm shocked that it hasn't been picked up, but I haven't really pushed it. The
Mm,
Automaton I wanted to do a hardcover of because I just felt like that was the perfect version
mm,
of the book for me. But the goal is always to take that hardcover and give it to a publisher and say, "Hey, look, check it out, man. Do the soft cover or the single issues. Do whatever you want with that. I got my version out of it."
right.
So that's on tap too. Like I said, Titan is a company I would love to work with
Yeah.
forever. I
Yeah.
just don't think all of my things work with the library that they have,
Right.
especially the hard case crime stuff. That's very selective. They're
hmm
very, very curated. And we've had talks about Cyrus Perkins there. And they were like, the art's cartoony and we don't do supernatural. It's hard case crime. And I'm like, yeah, it is a crime noir book, but it doesn't fit with them. It's not rated
Mm,
R. It's cartoony. It's more PG than anything. At least this
mm,
second volume goes a little darker because we're now talking about the demon thing.
right.
But yeah, I mean there are just I love the people at Oni. I love the people at Mad Cave. It's
hmm
just, do I have books that fit there right now? Probably not.
Yeah.
Like what I need to do is just get Robotech and be like, "Hey, Mad Cave, like just let me do what I want to do, and it's gonna be great."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's also the dream. We'll see. We'll
Very
see.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show here and, telling us about your current and future projects. Give us one more big plug for the Return of Cyrus Perkins, this Kickstarter, and when's it due, and
Oh yeah,
how
yeah,
people
yeah.
can pledge and contribute.
Well, I know that, I'm not sure when you're posting, but we have about a week. We're doing pretty well. It's interesting because, of course you want to fund on your first day, and of course you don't want to be stressed in your last week. And I'm doing my best to not be stressed, but we're about two-thirds of the way there.
Okay.
It ends on the 17th of November,
Okay.
which is next Monday, as we are recording this today. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there with it. And yeah, check it out. You could just type in Cyrus or Cyrus Perkins in the Kickstarter search, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of my books that I own are there too. So if any of this was intriguing to you, check it out, and you can
Okay.
add on to it. But honestly, I would just say check out the hardcover because it's the perfect version of this book, and it's a long time coming.
hmm
And if you want to check out my stuff, it's at hellbrain.com, one word, hellbrain. And then I'm just at Dave Dwonch everywhere on the internet and probably places I don't want to be at Dave Dwonch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And any other, or any, excuse me, not any other, any shows that you're planning to do in the next few months or next year?
Yeah. Like Thanksgiving weekend, I'll be at, funnily enough, this weekend, I'll be at the 10th anniversary of the Hall of Justice, which is here in Colorado. And
hmm
then I have a making comics little seminar with a Girl Scout troop on Sunday. This is how I'm celebrating my birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
And then Thanksgiving weekend, I'll be at Fan Expo SF, San Francisco,
Okay.
over that weekend. And then, gosh, chances are I'll be at Emerald City. I'll be at Puerto Rico Comic Con, which is my absolute favorite. I'll most likely be at C2E2. I'm doing Fan Expo Vancouver next year. I'm going to be doing Texas Frightmare, which I always do. It's a fantastic show.
Mhm.
And gosh, I'm all over. Like
Yeah.
my con schedule, like you don't really know until it's upon you, and I'm hoping to get back to Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina as well.
Very
So
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll be all over. Yeah, track me down. It's really easy to find me. I'm the only Dave Dwonch, and if you just type in Dwonch, you'll see all of my like oddly good-looking relatives. They all look like porn stars. It's really strange. Like it's all these like fantastically cut and greasy people, and then
Mhm.
me. So yeah, I'm the creative one. They got all the looks. I got all the creativity.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Well, when
right.
we came over on the boat, it was Devon something, or it was German. And, when my relatives came over, it was not pronounceable, and Germans were not favored at the time. So they were like Devon Dwonch. So Dwonch
Yeah,
is a made up name. So you
oh,
know that anyone we've found illegitimate children that took the Dwonch name. That's how
interesting.
specific it is.
Wow.
Yeah, real weird. None
That
of
might be.
mine, by the way. No, none of my kids, Mark.
I was gonna say that sounds like an interesting story idea for some future book for you. There you go.
I mean, yeah, I mean, everything that I do is based on something in my life, so that's pretty
Yes.
fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, it was a pleasure to see you again. I think it's been about 10, 20 years now.
It
And
has been a
yeah,
long time,
I know.
dude. It has.
But I'm glad to catch up with you. Sounds like all your projects are doing very well for you and things like that. And I wish you best of luck on the Kickstarter and any future project. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Fun Ideas podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much, bud.
All right.
This is
Thank you.
this is birthday week. This is the foundation of my birth. You're the beautiful tasty sponge cake. I got the icing coming later in the week. That's a good way to start my birthday week, man.
All right. Well, again, happy birthday. All
Thanks,
right.
bud.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.